Hello and welcome to the Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friend. If you've been looking for a podcast geared towards your growth, self-awareness, navigating your brain's daily mind drama, and deep inner work to become your highest and best self, you are in the perfect place. Let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. Hope everybody is doing really well. I'm doing well over here, as well as you can be with everything going on in the world. I know we're just living in crazy times. I think people are learning how to adapt, but it's definitely like super, super crazy. And emotions are still very high. I can totally feel it. So today we're going to be talking about the difference between knowing if something is your intuition trying to guide you or if it's your anxiety. And I'm going to do my absolute best to try and share with you the differences that I've found in my life. So hopefully I do a good job. But before we do that, I just wanted to remind you guys and ask you guys lovingly that if you love this podcast, if you get value from it, it really means a lot to me whenever you all tag me in your social media. So all you have to do is snapshot a photo of listening to the podcast on your phone and then tag me on your Instagram stories or tag me on your Facebook, or even if you are an iTunes listener, leave a review and rating. That really helps to get the podcast into more people's hands. And then that allows me to help more people with things that maybe they are struggling with and they don't know where to go to seek out the information. So I really do appreciate you doing that, and I would really love if you could continue to do that or start doing that if you haven't already. It does mean a lot to me, and it does actually help the podcast get out there more. So thank you for all of the people that listen and support this podcast and come back week after week. I truly appreciate you guys. Okay, so let's talk about the difference between our intuition guiding us and our anxiety. So I have to preface with, I am a very, very intuitive person, very empathetic, definitely someone that, like, somebody would call me an empath. An empath just means that you pick up on other people's energies, their feelings. So like if a family member is sad, I might pick up on their sadness and know that they're sad before they even tell me. I can walk into a room and I can really read the energy. After, spending time in a large group, I feel like I need to go home and decompress and unplug and recharge. So if you're like that, you're probably an empath as well. But I am definitely an intuitive person. I have been my entire life. And when I say I'm very intuitive, I'm not saying like I'm a psychic and I can predict the future. But I'm saying that energetically, I am so in tune with myself and so connected with myself and very spiritually in tune with myself that I intuitively can pick up on a lot that people who are not aware cannot. And I have felt this way since I was really, really little. And I noticed it when I was really little in weird ways. So one of the earliest memories that I have of knowing that my intuition was super, super strong is, I think that I was probably around 7 years old. And I went to an Easter egg hunt at this basically military base that my best friend, her dad worked at or would go. It was like his bank or something like that. It was something military related. And I was there with her and my other best friend and their moms. Both of their moms had gone. And it was this huge event where, hundreds of kids were coming out to do Easter egg hunts. And I can remember, no joke, you guys, at like 7 years old, I can remember sitting there. And I remember the lady saying that there were special eggs. There were like 4 special eggs. They were really, really big and they were crystals. And if you found this egg, you got an additional prize. And then that they were also going to call off a raffle, for additional prizes. So we did this Easter egg hunt, and I remember being like, I'm going to get one of those eggs. I just know it. I can feel it in my bones. I know I'm going to get one of those eggs. And hilariously enough, out of the hundreds of kids, it was me and my two best friends that got 3 of the 4 crystal eggs. Well, then when we go inside and we're sitting there, opening our eggs, and the lady is announcing we're going to call off some raffles. One lucky person's going to get this big, big, big stuffed animal. And I remember when she said that being like, it's me. I already know she's going to call my name. For some reason, I could feel it in my bones. I'm like, I just know she's going to call my name. I know it. And it wasn't even like I would say manifesting where I'm like, I want that big stuffed animal. I want it. It was just a knowing of like, I know my name's going to be called. I'm about to hear my name be called. I can remember this. And sure enough, out of the hundreds of kids there, she called my name. And I was like, I knew it. And I went up and I grabbed this huge stuffed animal, and I was so excited. And that's one of the earliest memories I have of really knowing I can predict things before they happen. And not in like I'm a psychic or anything like that, but just intuitively, like I can feel it and then it comes. Now, a part of that could be like when we're in energetic alignment, actually even when we're not in energetic alignment, we attract things all the time because we are energetic beings. But I think the thing to know about being in energetic alignment is that the more aligned you are with what you want in your vision, the faster that it comes. And this is very true for like when I'm teaching money, it's that you have to be in alignment with the amount that you were wanting to get, and you have to believe it's yours before you get it. And when you're in alignment with what you believe, and it's truly like to your core, something that you believe you're going to get, you attract it 10 times faster than if you're wishy-washy about it. But ultimately, what I want to tell you guys about intuition, to me, and again, this is just my experiences, being someone that's very, very intuitive. For me, when my intuition tells me something, it's very instant. It doesn't usually make sense. And it's a feeling that I can't really shake. And normally I feel like I don't really understand why that popped up in my mind the way that it did, and why my body is now having this response to it. So I'll give you an example of even just a few months ago. A few months ago, my husband was planning a trip to go to Vegas to see his cousin. And he was so excited. And he had to leave our home at around 5 o'clock in the morning to make sure that he made it to the airport on time, because the airport is about an hour and 15 minutes away from our house. So he had to make sure that he left early enough to make it on time. And he kissed me goodbye that morning. So he woke me up probably around like 4:45. And he kissed me goodbye, and he said, I'm on my way to the airport. And the moment that he walked out of the bedroom door and shut the door, I was wide awake, you guys, wide awake. Immediately, something in my gut said, something is wrong and something is going to happen. Now, I didn't allow myself to have a ton of anxiety over it, but it was this very weird feeling of like, don't go to sleep because something's going to happen and you're going to need to be by your phone. Now, I know what you guys are probably thinking in this moment. Why didn't I run out the door after him and say, don't go, something bad's going to happen? Because I didn't want to put anxiety in his mind. I also trusted that he was going to be okay. It was very weird. It wasn't like he was going to be significantly hurt. It was just like something bad's going to happen, like he's going to miss his flight, or I couldn't explain it, but my body just told me like something's wrong and I don't know what it is. I just have this intuitive feeling that I need to stay awake and stay by my phone. Not even 30 minutes after he had left the home, he calls me and he is highly upset. He had hit basically a tire that had blown from a semi-tractor trailer, 18-wheeler, whatever you call them, and it was right dab smack in the middle of the road. It was pitch black while he was driving, and he didn't have time to get over. He ran it over, and it pulled his front fender off and popped his tire. So I was awake, I didn't have to hesitate, or he didn't have to, call a million times to wake me up. I was already awake and scrolling on social media on my phone because my intuition had told me that something was going to go wrong and I needed to stay awake. So I was able to get to him and we still tried to make it to the airport. And unfortunately, they wouldn't let him get on the plane because it was 5 minutes before boarding. But he ended up being able to go to Las Vegas 2 weeks after that. And I believe that everything always happens for a reason as well. So I was like, who even knows? Maybe this plane is going to have mechanical errors. Maybe this was a divine thing of, to protect you. Maybe this just wasn't the weekend to go. Who even knows why? I don't know why. You don't know why. But I believe that everything happens for a reason. But it was very interesting to me. And I think the reason I didn't have a huge amount of anxiety over it was because the message came in super, super clear. I think with our intuition, we just immediately know something's wrong. I think that mothers or parents in general are very, very good at this. You're walking around in a store and you notice that somebody's kind of, maybe an aisle or two over from you, and you immediately get this feeling that something's not right. Whether it is that you're being watched or they're being creepy or you can't fully trust this person, you just identify how that feels in your body if you've ever had that happen, where something comes up and you're immediately ill, or ooh, stay close to me. I don't want you to go in the other aisles. I don't feel right about this. Or, ooh, we need to turn around. It's almost like an immediate message downloaded. Whereas anxiety feels more like you've got a lot of things that were already on your mind and you were worrying about something. And now when you think about it, you get more and more anxious. And then, the anxiety almost perpetuates itself so much so it doesn't go away. And sometimes you can't really pinpoint why it's there. Or if you do pinpoint why it's there, it's because you were already under so much stress, or this has happened before, or your brain is searching for past evidence, right? So when I'm anxious about something, I'll give you the difference, okay? There are some times that I wake up in the middle of the night at the same time, almost every single night, and I wake up with debilitating anxiety, and my first instinct is to check my phone to see if anybody's called me. When that happens, I know it's not my intuition as much as it's my anxiety. And the reason it's my anxiety is because when my Opa passed away, it was late at night. I was woken up out of my sleep because I keep my phone on silent at night. My husband keeps his on loud, and his phone started ringing, and it woke me up. And as he was answering the phone, a family member was calling me, and it was the news that my Opa had passed away. And so that was super traumatic, and kind of I had the same experience years before that with my uncle passing away. Only that one was more intuitive. I was awake that night and something told me, don't go to sleep. You're going to have to be awake anyways. And I didn't know why that was. But I just stayed awake. I stayed awake until 1 o'clock in the morning, and then our home phone rang, and it was the phone call saying that my uncle had lost his battle with cancer. And that didn't give me anxiety because intuitively something had told me, just stay awake. And I didn't know why. I couldn't explain it. But going back to the example with my Opa, I was woken up out of my sleep by these phone calls with horrible news that changed my life. Same thing with my Oma. I was coaching, and it was around 9 o'clock, and I get 2 back-to-back family phone calls. And so I have this pattern stored in my brain of, and I know it's when I get a phone call at night, it's going to be bad. And so that's where my brain goes immediately. If I get a phone call late at night, it's going to be bad. Same thing with my very best friend, who never really calls late because she goes to bed early. Last year in October, she called me at 11 o'clock, and I thought maybe she butt dialed me or it was a mistake. I'm like, there's no way. Like, she does not call people late at night. And then I had a voicemail, and I listened to the voicemail, and it was that her husband had passed away unexpectedly. And so because of the past evidence of my brain, meaning that I've got a lot of examples of I get a phone call late at night, automatically I associate that with someone has passed away. So if I go to bed at night and I'm worried about getting a phone call, I might wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning in a panic with anxiety, like, oh, did something happen? I need to check my phone. That's anxiety. The intuition is very much like a download. It comes straight through you. You don't always understand why. It's very random. You get this little nugget of something that you know you need to do, or something's not right, or something's going to go wrong. It's a very spiritual type of experience, you guys. I don't know exactly if I'm putting it into words that make sense, but I think if you're a mom or a parent or a caregiver, at some point in your parenting, you've had that experience where you just know, you're just like, I just know something's going to go wrong, or I just know you're going to get hurt. I just know that this person in Walmart is giving me the creeps, and I want you to hold on to the basket and stay within my line of vision because something just doesn't feel right. Or, it's kind of unexplainable. It just comes in as this very matter-of-fact download, stay tuned type of thing. And I don't want that to sound scary, because it can very much be a helpful thing when you learn how to lean into your intuition without associating it with the anxiousness, which I know can be hard to, distinguish. But I do feel like anxiety comes from previous thoughts, previous experiences, previous things in our brain database. And then it says, oh, this has happened before, that felt scary, that felt painful, that hurt, that was horrible, like, let's panic about this. Let's talk about this. This, I don't want that to happen again. I don't want that to happen again. And it's like this repetitive cycle rather than, just a matter of fact thing. Now, what can happen as well is, seeing as how I had this intuitive moment with my husband and his tire popping, I could have had complete anxiety over that. So that way the next time, I was worried, if I would have focused on how horrible of an experience that was, or, kind of like downloaded it in my brain that night as being a horrible experience, then the next time that he left, my anxiety very much could have been like, oh my gosh, what if that happens again? What if that wasn't a one-time thing? What if he's just not meant to go to Vegas? Oh my gosh, that would have been anxiety. But the next time that he left, like, I was just content. I don't even think I stayed awake, but to maybe know that he made it to the airport safely. And I wasn't anxious at all. It just was a totally different experience. So I don't know if this was helpful for you in deciphering the differences, but what I will say again is that when you have an intuitive moment, or when your intuition is speaking to you, it comes in very quickly, very randomly. And your body almost tells you that it's something is going down, whether it's something that's wrong or just something intuitively that it's like a little whisper. It's like, pay attention to this. Make sure you look at this. And it just feels very matter of fact. It's just like in your body, you just know. You just know. And you might not know why, and you might not understand it, and it feels very random, but you just know something is very off or not like it normally would be. Versus your anxiousness, you can kind of pinpoint to, did I go to bed with a bunch of these thoughts? Do I have past evidence of this? Have I worried about this before? Is this something, that I typically freak out about? Like, I think a lot of parents and caregivers, again, might have anxiety over, are my kids going to be safe? Every time they leave the door, I'm worried, are they going to be safe? Are they going to be safe? Are they, is everything going to be okay? And that's anxiousness. Like, if it just keeps coming and coming and coming and coming, it's likely that is anxiousness. But if your kids leave and automatically your gut just whispers something, like, call them, check on them, just follow up with them, make sure that they're okay, whatever. It's just very different. And I hope that that can be conveyed with a lot of people, because I know that I'm a very intuitive person. I've always picked up on energies. I can read a room. I can feel other people. I know when people are lying to me. It's a love-hate thing, but I know it because I can feel it in their energy. They can look me straight in the eye and tell me a bold-faced lie, and their energy will communicate to me that that is a lie, and I know immediately. And sometimes I won't even question them on it. I'm like, there's clearly a reason why they felt like they had to lie. But I totally know that they're lying. So, but not everybody can pick up on that. Not everybody is so in tune with their own energy, and I guess even maybe in a sense spirituality, that they can read a room like that. I do think that people who experience anxiety are also very intuitive people, but sometimes their anxiety is much stronger, as in they focus on the anxiety more than turning that into like more intuition and intuitive gifts. I need to talk about that on a different podcast, but just to give you a quick snippet, in other countries, anxiety is dealt with totally different than it is here in the US. And I have really studied this for a long time, because I've been someone that I've been someone that experiences anxiety or has had anxiety my entire life. I never got on medication for it. I think I've talked about this on the podcast because of my own personal reasons of, growing up with a family member who was medicated for several different things, and it turned into abuse, and me having to kind of grow up very quickly to kind of counteract all of that. And so as an adult, my own personal preference has been to be not medicated, but I have no negative feelings about anyone who does, or who feels like they need that additional help, just to be able to get through day to day. If that's what you need, then all the power to you. For me, it didn't seem like the thing to do. But what is very interesting in studying how anxiety is looked at in other countries is that they don't medicate people with anxiety in a lot of these other countries. They do a lot of holistic mentorship. And a lot of coaching, actually, is what I've learned. And they take the person that, especially shamans, if you're looking at countries that have like shamans and things like that, they will take in the person that is saying, I'm so anxious. I feel like I have mental health issues and I don't know what to do with this. And this is so very scary and it's miserable and I hate it. They will mentor that person and really treat it as a gift. And they tell them, your anxiety isn't a hindrance or a bad thing or something that you need healing from. This is a gift, because when you're anxious, you are typically picking up on a lot more. It means you absorb a lot more and you're in tune a lot more. And you have to learn how to harness that in a way that serves you and maybe even serves others. And so they will take this person under their wing and begin to help them understand the root cause of the anxiousness and mentor them to figure out what their gifts are, whether that is being very intuitive. And here's the thing, I work with a lot of clients that have a lot of anxiety, some that are medicated, some that are not. And when we get to the root cause of their anxiety, a lot of times it's a specific event or thing that caused that change in their brain chemistry, right? It was like a scary moment in their life, a traumatic memory in their life, and it created this anxiousness. But when they begin to heal it, they're very intuitive, in tune people. And so I can totally see why in these other countries, the way that they handle it is this is not a problem. It doesn't mean something's wrong with you and you need medication to function or to be quote unquote normal. Your anxiety is actually a gift that tells you a whole lot. It's just that sometimes it's kind of off frequency. It's not quite on the right station. Like, you've got to learn how to harness it and use it appropriately. And I think that that's something like in talking about the difference in intuition and anxiety is that they feel very, very similar. And if we understand where our anxiety is coming from, that can be very helpful in even being more awakened, being more in tune with ourself. Because a lot of times, and I've even looked at journal articles because I do have a master's degree in occupational therapy. You couldn't do anything without evidence-based practice. So I'm used to looking at medical journals to even see the research. And everything that I can find on anxiety is that there's nothing, like nobody actually knows where anxiety stems from. It doesn't stem from anxiety doesn't stem from the same thing in every single person. There's not like scientists, doctors, they don't just say, oh, if this piece of your brain is lit up, that means you have anxiety. No, anxiety comes from multiple different things and is different and presents different in every single person. So the research shows that one of the reasons that is because most anxiety comes from traumatic events that our brain individually, so individuals, recognize it as trauma, recognize it as stress, recognize it as pain. So I've talked about this in the podcast before, is that someone could have a car accident and it be so traumatic that they never get in a car again and they have anxiety the rest of their life. And some people can be in a car accident and get in the car the next day because they want to go places and still be independent. And you have one person that the anxiety is so debilitating, it affects them for the rest of their life. And you have another person where it doesn't seem to have affected them at all, but they both had the same car crash. Why is that? And so this is what the research shows, is that anxiety is different for every single person, and they can't pinpoint one reason or one thing in the brain that makes you get diagnosed with anxiety. And that's because anxiety is this very subjective thing of, I had this experience, it was traumatic to me, and I've never been the same person since. I have replayed it in my mind so many times that every time I think about it, I get anxious. Or every time something similar happens, I get anxious. Or every time I smell the same smell or hear a similar sound or see a similar thing, my body braces for impact and gives me anxiety. And so if we can study and understand this more of why people are anxious and where it's coming from and address it rather than cover it up, or rather than make people feel like there's something wrong with them, then we're doing them a much bigger service in the long run of helping them understand themselves to their core, rather than trying to put a Band-Aid over it and say something's wrong with you, you're broken. And that tends to be what we do in the US, is that we tend to say you're broken. Whereas I found in studies in other countries, they're like, no. Likely we can trace this back to something traumatic or painful that happened in your life. And if we just look at it deeper and understand it and help you heal it, then you can, use that as a way to be more, to step into your power, to, recognize your gifts, to help other people. And I see this with my clients, like I said, all the time. When they are able to work through their anxiety of why it's there and understand themselves more, they become very intuitive, empathic or empathetic people, because they can recognize that they're not the only one that feels that way, and other people are not the only people that feel that way. And we're actually way more connected than we think. So anyways, that was kind of a tangent, but I hope that this episode kind of helps you understand a little bit of the difference. And if you have any questions, please be sure to just reach out to me on social media. If you're a listener and you don't follow me on social media, make sure to do that. I'm on Instagram at MacyRenee_ and on Facebook, Macy Renee. And sometimes my podcast listeners reach out to me randomly, and it's my favorite thing ever. I love nothing more than to get messages from my podcast listeners of, hey, I listened to the podcast and I loved episode blah, blah, blah. And, and then just getting to know them and them getting to know me on social media. It's so fun. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And don't forget that Becoming Her is always open and available to you if you ever want to jump in our community and do this work for a lifetime. So just stay tuned at the end of the podcast and you can learn more about it. See you next week, guys. Hey girl, did you know there's a place for you to continue this work outside of the podcast? Well, there is, and it's called Becoming Her. This is my online and ongoing coaching container for self-mastery. Everything takes place online and is the best value for your investment if you're wanting to work with me. This is for women that want to create lasting change by learning how to master themselves, their energy, their mindset, and how to do the deep inner work. It's a growing community where you're supported for life with live online trainings, access to all previously recorded content, and 2 one-on-one coaching calls with me per month. It's an investment where you can rest assured you'll have everything you need at your fingertips and where there's one primary goal, becoming your highest self. If this has been something you're looking for, join us and be a part of the growth. You can find out more information on MacyRenee.com.